Yeah.
I guess that's well planned.
It's her superpower,
That
actually.
was only an animated GIF.
Yeah. We're working on that.
Pew,
Wonder if
pew,
that would
pew.
There. All right.
Would that work? Could you? I don't know. All right. Let me make sure I'm recording. Excellent. All right. Here we go.
This podcast is made possible by listeners like you at patreon.com/acedetect. Offer void where prohibited. Your mileage may vary. Product may contain nuts.
This is the Daily Tech News for Tuesday, August 5th, 2014. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Grand Nagus of GeekDad.com, Mr. Ken Denmead. It's been too long since we chatted, my friend.
Heidi ho, neighbor. Yes, it has. I'm so happy to be here in the new digs.
Hey, thanks, man. It's good to have you.
Ish.
We've got some good science-y topics today.
Yeah, there's been a few cool things that I thought we could talk about a little bit. It's some fun science fiction-y things going on.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get to potato chip bags that allow you to spy on people and a little bit of reaction to the propellantless microwave thrusters. But let's start off with the headlines. Not a good 24 hours for Samsung. First, Canalys announces its data showing Xiaomi shipped just less than 15 million smartphone units in China in Q2, taking the top spot away from Samsung, which only shipped 13.2 million in the country. That was barely enough to stay in front of Lenovo. Then, Counterpoint Research claims their evidence shows Micromax, an Indian company, has passed Samsung in India to take the top spot in the mobile phone market share there, with 16.6% for Micromax, pardon me, to Samsung's 14%. The good news for Samsung is that Micromax number is for all mobile phones. Smartphones is still in Samsung's possession in India with 25.3% of the market to Micromax's 19.1%. They're coming up.
I'm sure Microsoft would have been really happy if they had 16.6%.
Microsoft wishes they were Micromax. Maybe Microsoft would like to buy Micromax.
Yeah,
It's only half a name change.
Yeah, obviously continued evidence that the race to the bottom in terms of cheap hardware will never help anyone.
There's
anyway.
got to be some Schadenfreude over there on the Nokia and BlackBerry sidelines as they're like, yeah, we were up there at where you are right now, Samsung. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And you all laughed at us. See, it's not that easy to keep up there at number one.
Exactly.
None of the following I'm about to say is actually official. TechCrunch, citing a Recode report, says Apple has scheduled a big media event for Tuesday, September 9th, at which Apple is likely to unveil its next generation iPhone. Here's what the rumor roundup has rustled up so far. Phones with 4.7-inch screens and possibly also another device with a 5.5-inch display. Oh, that's a little less likely. The new iPhone may use the new A8 processors, could be all metal, might have temperature and humidity sensors, and could possibly support near-field communications. Bloomberg and Wall Street Journal are also reporting that their people familiar with the matter say, yep, September 9th will be the date. But Apple hasn't said anything officially yet.
I think these days Wall Street Journal is kind of the unofficial official word. So
yeah, once you see them
Apple's
leak it, confidence levels rise above 90%.
exactly.
Sure.
But it is about freaking time, right? I mean, everybody's been on the edge of their seats since WWDC for some kind of announcement, and personally, I will either be pre-ordering in the first nanosecond or online because my poor iPhone 4S that I've had for quite a while now.
4S.
I have. All right. See here's this is a tech show. People will understand. At one point, I was cleaning out some dust from inside my charger port, and I broke off one pin. It's the one pin that allows the phone to be recognized officially by USB. So I can't charge it when it's turned on, but it will charge when it's turned off.
Oh, okay. Or you could probably get a cable that's dumb.
Yeah,
that would charge it when it's on too. Maybe.
That might work. I hadn't thought about trying that, but
yeah. Oh man, I remember I did. What did I do that to? I bent a pin like that on something once, and it was just like, forget it.
But now I can't plug it into my computer anymore, so I can only back it up on iCloud and a host of other little nagging issues. So it's like, I've been waiting for the new phones. Thank goodness. Let this be true.
Right, because if you're gonna keep an iPhone, if you've decided I'm not gonna switch to Android, then you don't want to buy a new phone right before the new one gets announced. You've
Precisely.
Gotta wait for it. Yeah.
You got to wait it out.
Reuters reports BlackBerry has sent a memo to its employees saying restructuring is done. And the company is back on track to be positive in cash flow by the end of the year. In other words, if you're still working here, your job is safe for now. BlackBerry has cut its workforce by 60% over the last 3 years, but John Chen seems to have whipped them into the shape in the 8 months that he's been there.
Yeah, I don't know if reducing your workforce by 60% should qualify as restructuring, as so much as a complete gut and remodel.
An employee bottomy.
Yeah, jeez, that's pretty. But you know what? Maybe if the core is still there and they can come back and start doing some lean, mean innovation, we might see some of that old timey BlackBerry spirit come back.
Yeah, small and agile could happen.
Yeah.
GigaOM reports Justin.tv has shut down today after 7 years. Existing members have until September 5th to transfer their accounts to Twitch. Archived video will not be made available. Justin shut its archives down June 15th. The company now solely exists as Twitch, which had 50 million unique viewers in July and, of course, has all those rumors that have yet to be substantiated that Google wants to acquire them.
That such a, what was that, Web 2.5 Justin TV? I mean, that really was the sort of the forefront of personal blogging and the rise of, living your life online. I think we all recoiled a little bit from it, which probably has some of the reasoning why these things have changed. But it was a real forerunner in its day.
Oh, yeah. I mean, at the height of Web 2.0, Justin Can was walking around with a camera attached to his head, and they have actually a really good video up. If you go to Justin.tv, they have a video saying goodbye and announcing the departure and sort of doing a look back, and I'm like, this is going to be self-indulgent and cheesy, and it wasn't. I looked at it, I'm like, yeah, this is the end of an era. This is Web 2.9, right? We're done. Whatever the next, we're going to call it Web 3 or semantic web or the Internet of Things or whatever you want to call the next wave. This feels like one of those marking points.
Yeah, definitely. It's sad, but it feels like we've all grown up.
Yeah, we've moved on.
Yeah.
We control our lights with smartphones now. We don't have time to livecast.
Yeah.
According to Tom's Guide, a new device called Navdi is going to change your life soon. It sits on your dashboard and projects maps, images, and text onto a 5-inch flip-up glass screen. The projected image is transparent and appears to float 6 feet ahead of the driver, and I quote, "so it doesn't distract." The device can pair with your smartphone to make calls and stream music and plugs into the car's OBD2 port for power and gets a little data that way. Navdi will ship in early 2015 at a pre-order price of $299. Future versions will sell for $499. In their video, Lonely Sandwich was the demonstrator and assured me it's safe because pilots use a similar thing. Thanks, Adam. The Daily Tech News Show is now accepting suggestions on how this could possibly be safe.
I don't know. I've a set-top box for your dashboard. I've always been a little suspicious of people using suction cups to put their phones up on their windshields or whatever for turn by turn and stuff. I really don't see this as a great alternative to automakers really putting heads-up displays in cars. I can see heads-up displays working at least for night driving at some point. I mean, the idea is keep your eyes on the road or right in front of you, and whatever augmentation they can do with, overlaying infrared so you see when there are animals ahead, or that, or being able to target the drive line or whatever that you should be on.
Something more substantial. Yeah,
I think that stuff can really work and probably promote driver safety. But if I've got a little thing that I have to stick up here and rubber suction cup to my dashboard and pair with my phone, I'm a little dubious.
I don't think it's that unsafe though. It's no less safe than looking down at your speed limit, your speedometer, right? Which is even a little lower. It all depends on whether it works.
Yeah, but I worry about just ungainly too. It's it's not part of the car. It's you're
clear
gluing
glass.
on.
I'd like to try it to see. Yeah. Because I'm a big fan of Lonely Sandwich, and so I was really stoked to see him in the video. And the way he describes it, I'm like, all right, maybe I could buy that. But I would like to try one out.
Okay.
Recode reports Microsoft confirmed Tuesday it has hired former Qualcomm executive Peggy Johnson to head up its business development. Johnson will start September 1st as Executive Vice President of Global Business Development. She'll be reporting to CEO Satya Nadella. Johnson was most recently heading global marketing and Qualcomm Labs. Ars Technica reports that 17-year-old Joshua Rogers of Melbourne, Australia, has discovered another way to spoof browser cookies to bypass PayPal's two-factor authentication. It's another way to bypass anyway. I think it's the first time it used cookies. Before it was a smartphone app thing. The procedure involves using the process that links eBay to PayPal accounts. An attacker would still need to know the victim's user ID and password, but that's what two-factor authentication is supposed to minimize the risk of. Rogers is a white-hat hacker and says he reported the vulnerability to PayPal on June 5th and received no response. Hence, 2 months later, he decided to make it public so people knew the risk.
We're never going to not have people hacking stuff.
Right. And
there's no perfect solution.
Totally agree with you there. I do think that it is incumbent upon people like PayPal to respond to these things, to respond to these people and try to fix the problem. I know PayPal probably thinks it's a minimal case risk. That's usually what happens in these situations. But it is a risk, and it's like, hey man, I got two-factor authentication for a reason. If the hacker knows how to use eBay to get around it, then it's not. That's the person I'm trying to defend against.
Right, and if one half of your authentication has been broken, that means your system is broken. So fix it.
Yeah. Time for some news from you. TM204 submitted the MIT News Post that researchers from MIT, Microsoft, and Adobe will present findings at SIGGRAPH on how to reconstruct audio from video of certain objects. One experiment recorded video of a potato chip bag from 15 feet away behind soundproof glass. An algorithm interprets minute variations on the bag and then can reconstruct the audio. While most of the experiment required high-quality video up to 6,000 frames per second to detect the vibrations, the researchers also figured out how to exploit the way sensors on consumer cameras that only operate at 60 frames per second work in order to detect lower quality but still usable audio. None of the experiments could interpret the audio in real time, though. One capture took 2 hours to process, but just the fact that they could do it at all is pretty crazy. Ken and I are going to talk about this one in some substantial length here in a couple minutes.
Yeah.
Hermith posted the Ars Technica article that Aereo is still fighting. We know Aereo argues they should be allowed to pay the compulsory license to continue operating as a cable company. Another argument asks permission to continue to provide recorded video, since at oral argument, the Supreme Court indicated that recording did not violate the plaintiff's public performance rights. While U.S. District Judge Allison Nathan rejected Aereo's emergency motion on these arguments, she did order both sides to file papers in support of their positions over the next 5 weeks.
That's interesting. I wonder, okay, so they're saying that basically the DVR capability is legal.
Yeah. They're trying to get anything at this point.
Yeah. How much does something have to be time shifted to be counted as a recording rather than as a play?
That would be the next question, right? Because they already were trying to argue like, hey, it's already not live. It's time shifted a couple seconds just because of the delay. That didn't work. So it's got to be more than that. Spider Chick pointed out the device story that the IEEE has released a new official standard for 802.22. It is a WRAN protocol, wireless regional area network, that can cover 12,000 square miles. The standard is designed to take advantage of spectrum between the 54 megahertz and 698 megahertz bands. That was opened up by the shutdown of analog TV. In theory, the standard will supposedly be able to broadcast data at up to 22 megabits per second. So it's not crazy fast, but it goes over 62 miles from a single base station at the max. So even if it doesn't hit that theoretical max, it can broadcast a long way. Pretty interesting stuff for carriers.
I don't know if I'll ever get used to not calling 802.11, but so all right, let's imagine it's 22 megabits now. This is the first iteration.
Sure.
When we get to 802.22n, we're gonna have gigabit over the air. We'll have gigabit Wi-Fi everywhere.
We'll be awash in gigabit, and
yes.
Only 4K video will buffer then. MacBytes passes along an Engadget report that the dawn of the robotic exoskeleton is upon us, sort of. South Korean car maker Daewoo has been testing a robotic suit that allows shipyard workers to carry objects as heavy as 66 pounds with ease by putting all the load on the machine. at least for the 3 hours that the battery lasts. Daewoo hopes that the exoskeleton will eventually hold up to 220 pounds, just as soon as they figure out how to cope with things like slippery floors and twisting movements. So no moonwalking in the exoskeleton, please, people.
Imagining someone in the place going, "Get away from my hatchback, you!"
And that is a look at the headlines. The exoskeletons, man, that's amazing. Hey, one thing that I've been up to since I last saw you, Ken Denmead, is putting together the Sword and Laser anthology with Veronica Belmont. We got 20 amazing stories, 10 sci-fi, 10 fantasy, hence the sword and the laser, from new authors in our audience. We got an introduction by Patrick Rothfuss. So if you haven't checked it out, folks, go get a copy at swordandlaser.com/store and help Veronica and myself out a little bit, as well as those authors. swordandlaser.com/store. All right, let's talk about this extracting audio from a potato chip behind soundproof glass.
I love this.
Potato chip bag behind.
I love that. So the whole thing, they figured out, beyond the fact that using video, this is just like ye old laser mics. How many spy stories with laser mics bouncing off a window?
Oh, you shoot the laser at the window, and now I can hear everything. Yeah. Right.
So this is actually just using the visual information that you can get. They had it down to something like a 700 pixel I don't know, the resolution did not have to be very high, but they could process the minute variations in video, frame by frame, to tell how the thing was vibrating, and then translate that into audio. Not necessarily real time, but translate that into audio. Then they figured out that the commercial grade cameras, they could do it because the commercial grade cameras record line by line to get their 60 frames per second. They could literally look at one line versus the next line and determine the differences. And
right, because of the shift.
Just the shift from a single line of video. That's frightening in so many ways. But
I've got the audio now. I want to tell people, if you really want to get a fair approximation of what's going on, you need to go to the source. You need to go to the MIT folks, people.csail.mit.edu. There's a page for it there, and I'll have a link to that in the show notes as well, or just look for it on YouTube. But this will give you an idea. So through soundproof glass, focused on a potato chip bag that's 15 feet away, and they do have to be within 4 meters, so they have to be fairly close. But through soundproof glass, this is what they were playing in the room.
Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow.
This is what they could reconstruct with no audio information through soundproof glass off of a potato chip bag.
Mary had a little lamb whose fleece was white as snow.
Wow, it's like 26 kilobit per second MP3 right there.
I mean, it's not faithful, but it's freaking impressive. That's off of the minute, invisible vibrations of a potato chip bag.
That's a little bit frightening, and the fact that Microsoft and Adobe are involved with this makes me predict that within 5 years you'll have an app on your phone that can do this, and it'll automatically translate it, put it in a PDF, and upload it to your SkyDrive.
Right, we just need twin 3.5 gigahertz phones with 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is the machine they use to take 2 hours.
Which is conceivable.
It's actually not that outlandish in a few years, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we're not that far off on the processor. 32 gigabytes of RAM, we're already up to a couple gigs, sometimes 4 gigs of RAM in a smartphone. In 5 years, 32 gigs might be top end, but
I expect to see this on Person of Interest next week.
Yes, perfect stuff for them. Now, you mentioned that they were able to do this. This was with what I just played was from a 6,000 frame per second, or up to a 6,000 frame per second video. So it had to be very high resolution video. They were able to do it, like you were saying, with the 60 frame per second DSLR by paying attention to those lines you were talking about. Here's what it sounds like. This is what they were playing in the room with that DSLR. All right, so it's just a little MIDI. Mary had a little lamb. This is just out of a 60 frame per second consumer DSLR, what they were able to reconstruct.
I didn't know Nine Inch Nails had a new album coming out.
It is a remix of a sort. But the fact that they can do it at all, like that's what your cell phone would be able to do. There is another piece of that video, I don't know if you saw, where they were using Shazam to try to recognize the audio
Wow.
of the music just by translating the video and playing it into Shazam, and it was able to do it.
We are so far beyond the pale now.
Yeah.
There is no privacy.
They, obviously Ken and I are leaping to the person of interest spy functions of this, but they said this can also be used to detect material and mechanical properties of the objects based on the response to sound. And in fact,
Very good, yeah.
they're talking about all kinds of things. They're like, we don't know what this could be used for, but you're able to tell a lot of properties of the material you're looking at with our algorithm. So it might be more than just
it could be material science. It could be. I mean, you could even probably use that for rescue, search and rescue. If instead of having to crawl over disaster sites with dogs or whatever, you actually could literally just have video cameras watching it and be able to determine where voices or shouts are coming from.
Sure. The smallest. I mean, they were saying that this would be able to detect usually undetectable motion like an infant breathing or the pulse in your wrist. If you don't have a really high blood pressure, you can't really see the pulse in your wrist, but this could.
Yeah.
They'll present this stuff at SIGGRAPH this year, but I like this. Limited utility currently, right? Don't get too excited that you're going to be taking this out in the field next year.
But the NSA is really excited.
Oh, man. I'm sure they are. Before we move off into the calendar, you wanted to talk about this microwave drive that I mentioned on Friday. And just to recap for those who missed it, maybe, the M drive by British engineer Roger Scheuer claims to provide thrust without propellant by bouncing around microwaves. Now, a lot of critics have said that's ridiculous. It would violate the conservation of momentum. Some Chinese scientists claim to have built and tested an M drive in 2013. That didn't get a lot of attention. But there is a similar design by Guido Fetta called the Kenna drive. And researchers at NASA's Johnson Space Center presented a paper at the Joint Propulsion Conference in Cleveland last week showing a modified version of the Kenna drive did generate some 30 to 5 micronewtons of thrust. That set off a lot of reactions of, oh my gosh, this could get us to Mars in a couple weeks. And then a bunch of reactions of NASA is supporting baloney. This is crap. Ken, can you help us clear up some of the FUD here?
It's been funny. It was funny. Seeing the first information come out, and it just creates a lot of what if? That's pretty cool. This could be one of those breakthroughs that takes us a step forward. And then just early this week, starting to see a kind of almost rabid counter reaction, and I think more than to the science itself. I mean, the science that was presented, the paper. You go and read the actual paper. Go and read what they wrote. They're not saying, "Holy cow, we've invented warp drive." Holy cow, this or anything. All they said, it's a scientific paper. It says, we did this. These were the conditions. These are the things that we tried. We believe we had all of errors taken care of. These were the results. We're not saying we understand what happened here. We're just saying this is what happened. They did not make any claims whatsoever other than presenting what they saw happen. It's the headline writers that started off with all the ebullient superlatives.
NASA invents warp drive. Yeah.
Exactly. And so what's been kind of scary though is that the reaction has been, oh, it was NASA that said those things. And that's not the case, and this is where, science gets lost in the publicity and inaccurate reporting. The basic of this is somebody did an experiment. It had unexpected results that are promising for stuff that we didn't expect, but somebody else. This is the impetus for somebody else to go out and try it again and see whether or not they can figure out if there was systemic error in the experiment itself, or if they've stumbled on something like so many other great scientific discoveries have come from. Maybe we've accidentally found something that we're pushing against something we didn't even know was there, and maybe we're pushing against dark matter and we don't even know it. Who knows?
Yeah,
but let's get some better science reporting out there.
Yeah, I mean, I believe I made the point that this still needs to be replicated This is not definitive, but it's interesting.
Yeah.
What I know I'm guilty of is not clarifying that this was a presentation of a paper. Now, I know what that means, but a lot of people don't. Presentation of a paper means it's not published and peer-reviewed. So they're just saying, here were our findings so far.
Yeah.
Come help us poke some holes in it and give us some ideas for our final paper. That's what you do. That's why you present a paper.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people took this to mean like, oh, they're publishing that they found, unequivocal evidence of thrust.
And that's
which
for
is also
people who
not true.
don't understand the scientific method and the whole process that these things are supposed to go through. They figured this was a press release. It's not a press release. This is presentation of a paper that now needs to go through the ringer, and we see what comes out the other side.
All right, so hopefully that helps you. I don't want to douse people's enthusiasm because it would be really, really cool if this were true.
Yeah.
We just don't know that it's true at this point.
I want to douse people's anti-enthusiasm.
Yes, exactly. And
I want to find enthusiasm in between.
just some enthusiasm. Where's the, no endo, no endo, no extra. Calendar, only one item tomorrow in London. It's the start of Wikimania. The conference, which runs from August 6th to the 10th, is a 2,000-person festival meetup, workshop, hackathon, and celebration of everything Wikitastic. You can find more details at techmeme.com. Pick of the day comes from Chris today. He says, hey, Tom and Jenny, love the show. Jenny, our producer. Yay. Good shout out, Chris. Just discovered Pluto.tv. It's a cool app to watch video online. Over 100 curated channels in a nicely organized channel guide for that lean back experience. Now with Chromecast support on Android, this is a nice pick for folks just looking for a variety of cued specialty content online. I can't speak for the rights clearances or how these channels are legally vetted, but thought it was worth sharing. Maybe something of interest for the Cord Killers podcast as well. Yeah, Chris, I'm actually a fan of Pluto.tv. I believe it's legal because they're just taking embedded video that people make available on the internet and they're re-embedding it in their guide. So they're just acting as sort of a way for you to find these videos, and they play them in series. So it's really cool. You get a TV guide looking interface, and you could say, oh, I want to watch all of the ABC News clips that are available and just watch them in series. I want to watch, they have some like home repair channels or travel channels where they string together videos from various people who do that sort of content. It's really interesting. Have you heard of this, Ken?
I had not heard of this. This sounds really good. I mean, obviously, the challenge for all cord cutters has always been how to get good curation, how to get good exploration, and how to find stuff that's out there. And maybe, this is a great little thing that'll eventually get bought by someone who actually makes hardware and then turned into something really good.
Yeah, check it out, Pluto.tv. You can send your picks. Send us a pick. Feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. We love getting the picks. You can find my picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. Another Jay Martin writes, hey, Tom, I work for an anti-spam company and wanted to chime in on Google scanning images in Gmail. If Google is doing what we are doing, Google hashes every part of an email, all the images, the subject headers, source IP, etc., into a huge database for multiple reasons, including choosing more appropriate ads, tagging spam, and finding illegal activity. Hashing parts of email is common utility used for multiple uses. As you said, one of those hashes probably tripped an alarm that matched with another database of abusive images. However, just one instance probably is not enough to start the process of getting law enforcement involved to try to alleviate Gnomewise's fears. Our guest from yesterday. A human or team probably watch for hashes of multiple images, certain keywords, or from specific source IPs, and build up a good supply of evidence before bringing it to law enforcement so that false positives don't occur. He's like, you don't have to read this on DTNS if you don't want to, but I did want to because it's a really good point. Thank you, another Jay Martin, for pointing out that we like spam filters that read our email and decide that they're spam and get rid of it. Mm-hmm. So just the reading of the email isn't always a bad thing. It's a tricky thing. You heard about the another example. It's not the first one of someone getting busted for trafficking in child pornography in this case by having their Gmail handed over. It's tricky when you have somebody else involved in holding. The only true way to protect yourself is to host your own email. Yeah,
that's it. If you're going to do, I can't even make jokes about this, but once again, never expect that anything that you're putting out on the internet will not be seen by someone else one way or the other. If you are that paranoid about it, then either stop using the internet or you need to go to some really inconvenient lengths to try and mask what you're doing. But in general, just assume that somewhere along the way someone's going to see something. But you know what? 99.999%. I know five nines of confidence. It's not going to matter to anybody. It just doesn't. What you say in your emails don't matter to anybody who's going to possibly accidentally see them somehow. But.
And don't, like you say, assume that stuff is visible, and don't put sensitive information, especially things like bank account, financial information, in there. If
anything that fits a pattern can be recognized as a pattern too.
Yep. Our final email comes from Nick, who is excited that the WWE Network, that's the online-only wrestling broadcast that we've reported on in the past, is expanding to 170 countries on August 12th. Nick is personally excited to try it out, as it's going to be the first major cord-cutting service we will have legal access to in Australia. I'm a little put off by having to use a VPN to access other services, so this is big news to me. Thanks, Nick. That's good to know. 170 countries. WWE Network's a really interesting experiment because it's sports that makes a lot of money off pay-per-view, saying we'd like to make that money directly instead of getting other people.
Sport, in quotation marks. My biggest question here, does that just mean we're going to finally get it off of Sci-Fi?
Not soon, but maybe down the road, if this takes off enough, it might disappear.
Which is probably bad for Sci-Fi, really, for their bottom line. But
yeah, it might be, actually. It might not be good news if you want other things on Sci-Fi. Yeah.
More Sharknado, yeah.
Please, more Sharknado. It's my patriotic duty to ask for more Sharknado. Ken, this was fun, as I knew it would be. It's good to have you back on a show.
Really good to be back. Great to see you, Tom, and always fun.
Twitter.com/Ken Denmead. That's DENMEAD. And, of course, GeekDadBook.com if you want to find the Geek Dad book that Ken's been working on. What's going on with that?
Oh, there are 3 Geek Dad books in print that you can find. They're on Amazon. They're in your bookstores. They're actually carried in most science museum gift shops too, which is the most fun. I'll have people Twitter me pictures when they go into a museum gift shop and find my book there. There's Geek Dad, awesomely geeky activities and projects for dads and kids to share. The Geek Dad's Guide to Weekend Fun, and the Geek Dad book for aspiring mad scientists.
Look for it between the Silly Putty and the Neapolitan freeze-dried ice cream in your local scientific museum bookshop. That's great. GeekDadBook.com. Thank you, Ken. Appreciate it, man.
Take care.
Thanks to our patrons, 4,225 of them, who help put this show on the air. bit.ly/helpdtns if you'd like to know more about Patreon. And actually, we have a new way to donate. A lot of people have been asking for a long time. I don't want to subscribe through Patreon. It's just not my thing. Can I make a one-time donation? You can do it by Dogecoin, Bitcoin, or good old-fashioned currency through PayPal at dailytechnewsshow.com/donate starting today. Don't forget, you can have a voice in what stories we cover at our subreddit, dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. You can email us feedback at dailytechnewsshow.com. That's the email address, feedback at dailytechnewsshow. Our phone number is 512-59-DAILY. That's 512-593-2459. And our show streams live at 4:30 p.m. Eastern, 1:30 Pacific at mobile.alphageekradio.com. Our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. We'll be back tomorrow with Jessica Naziri as our guest. See you then.
About this and other shows, visit frogpants.com. Audio program so good, it's like you're there.
Yay.
All right.
That was great, man.
That was great.
Always fun. Always fun. We've put the Geek Dad podcast on hiatus for quite a while, and I've been sort of in limbo with everything that's going on, but I got to get it going again or find something.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I inspired you.
Yeah.
I'm glad this inspired you. I don't take credit myself. But,
yeah.
But yeah, no, this is as expected. As I said, always fun doing a podcast with you.
Excellent.
We just hang out afterwards while I edit the show, and we keep the video streaming. You don't have to stick around if you need to go.
Yeah, I got to go pick up my car and then get back to work for a little bit.
All right. I'm glad to hear your car is fixed.
Thank goodness. I can get it smogged, and everything will be fine for another 2 years.
Yay.
All right.
Good. All right.
Cheers,
Take care,
everybody.
man. Cheers.
That was great.
Showbot. Yeah, it was. Showbot.replex.org.
Chiptunes.
Chiptunes.
I think
It's
that's
kind of chiptunes.
really
Yeah.
short and to the point.
And then broken chiptunes.
Oh man.
Is science making waves? I like that eternal sword. That's good.
I am very. That was a good show.
Fred has a good one too. With PayPal's like this, who needs enemies?
Very nice.
Oh, Justin.RIP. That's sad, Todd.
Oh. Wow. How is it that Slash Film is still in last place? That doesn't seem right.
Because one of their main picks tanked.
Tanked, yeah.
Which one was it? I can't remember now.
I don't know, but
Hercules.
Hercules.
sunk them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's amazing that they didn't make it up to 5th.
I know, with Guardians.
Yeah.
What was the other
They
one
might
had?
still. They might still. Hold on, let me look it up.
That's true. It's only the
now-
opening weekend right now, so.
Yeah. This is as of today, but yeah, you're right. I think I'm now reduced to in taking interest in other people's destinies.
Yeah.
Since ours is so bronzy boring.
Boy,
I hope.
chiptunes is. I feel like it's a little abstract. It's funny in context, but if,
Right.
like if you haven't listened to the episode yet, is it still? I think I might go with PayPal's like this. Who needs enemies?
I mean, it's a great title. Their other movie was The Purge Anarchy.
Oh yeah, and that didn't really perform.
Yeah. Wow.
They
Well-
picked a lot of things that were supposed to do better and didn't.
Yeah. And we picked one thing that was supposed to do better and didn't.
Well, it's debatable how much better it was supposed to do, but it needed to do.
A little bit, just tiny little bit
I mean,
better.
I expected it. I wasn't sure it was going to do enough to get us to the top spot, but I
Right.
expected it to do better than that.
Yeah, me too, Cameron Diaz. Jason Segel. I read a really interesting thing that basically said, as a result of sex tape, maybe the studio should start doing things outside of LA, because maybe like there were a lot of people that weren't going to go see that movie in the rest of the country.
I don't know. I wonder if the time of that kind of movie is over.
Yeah.
You know, like people are like, I get better entertainment on TV than.
Right.
than
I mean,
in
the time of the mediocre movie is over, I
Yeah.
think. I think that's what, with the exception of Edge of Tomorrow, which was a great movie with a terrible title that nobody saw, I feel like,
Did okay, didn't it?
yeah, it did okay. But
I mean, it didn't do what you would have expected Tom Cruise to do 10 years ago.
well, not even Tom Cruise, just like put anyone else in that movie. It was a great movie. And it was a
Yeah.
great movie
No,
with
you're
Tom
right. It
Cruise
only
in
did 98 million. It should have done more than that.
Should have done more than that. So like, but yeah, I think that the proof is in the pudding. Like, why go see the time when like people would just go to the movies to have something to do in the summer is gone. Like, a good movie, and especially the bar I think is higher for comedies. Like, it has to be a great comedy.
And I think that's the problem with Edge of Tomorrow is people are making that calculus exactly like you say. Like, am I going to have fun? I'll go see Guardians of the Galaxy because I'm going to have fun. But if I'm not going to have fun, I'm not going to sit in a dark room for 2 hours.
Right.
And Edge of Tomorrow, because of I know I looked at it and went, oh, this is Oblivion again. because it's
Right,
Tom Cruise
well,
in a sci-fi movie. And I didn't
right.
really pay, like, yeah, you can tell me whatever you want in the trailer, but Oblivion looked good in the trailer too.
Yeah.
And so I think there were a lot
Yeah.
of people who just like, not going to
I
do it.
think I think that's absolutely true, and I think it's a shame because Oblivion was a mediocre movie, and Edge of Tomorrow was terrific.
Yeah.
Ooh, a new title contender from Jackie Hearn. Hold on.
What? Video vibrations killed the audio privacy. Oh, yeah.
Oh man.
Sorry, Fred. I'm going to be, as soon as this finishes exporting, I think I may be changing the...
Yeah, I like that one a lot.
Because it's the main topic and it nails the issue.
Oh, Seb Gons wants to know Jenny J23's opinion on Guardians of the Galaxy. So I think suffice to say, in one word, it was awesome. But beyond that, it was perfectly, I think I said this somewhere, but it was perfectly structured for a everybody comes together movie, like a team like a Firefly, and it just made me so happy. The music was great. It was everything I wanted in every movie ever.
Wow.
We
I
were
liked
so
it
happy.
too, but
Like,
I'm not sure I liked it that much.
I liked it that much.
It was
Because
Casablanca, Citizen Kane, and The Dark Knight all rolled into one.
all of the Marvel movies, yes. And the reason I say that is because it's the first Marvel movie that made me go online and go to marvel.com and spend an hour and a half looking up the various elements that were hinted at in that movie.
Now, is that because you just weren't familiar and you
Yeah.
are familiar with the other ones, though?
No, I didn't know any, like,
Okay,
I
that's what
knew
I'm checking.
I knew nothing about any of the Marvel movies beyond, well, really nothing, because I just didn't read the comic books when
Like
I
you
grew
never
up.
read
So
Iron Man growing up, right?
yeah, no, I was what you would call a receptive ignorant. So, like, clearly growing up reading the books that I did, I was very receptive to Marvel movies, but I knew nothing about them. But each of the movies that I saw were great, but they didn't make me curious about the world. And this one was just like, what was all that? I now have to know everything. Yes, and also Seb Guns is right. It didn't take itself too seriously, and it had, Matt and I were talking about this, it had, without giving things away, amazing levels of villainry. And that's all I'll say for now.
Levels.
But flavors.
Flavors.
If villains were flavors.
Variants.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know, I'm
Variants.
picking up what you're throwing down.
And I thought that was so impressive because if you think about the difference between the villains of this movie and the villains of, say, Spider-Man, whatever the hell it was that came out this summer, it was the difference between throwing a bunch of villains in a pot and stirring them around or making, like, a fabulous villain cake. I don't know. It was just fantastic. That's all I can say without specifically wrecking it. And then what was the other thing? What was the other thing I really, truly loved? Oh, every piece of filmed entertainment needs a Xander. That's the rule. Like, everybody's got to have the treacle cutter. And it turns out that this movie had, like, 5 of them. It's just great. So anyway, there you go. Seb Gons.
I feel like the appeal to me, and I don't put this one better than the Avengers, personally.
Fair. No,
But
you're right.
the appeal to me is these are the superheroes. This is if we all went out and tried to be the Avengers in a world in which spaceships exist and aliens and all of that.
Yes.
This is what we would be, right? This is the group we would have. These are the conversations we would have. Obviously, we wouldn't be bioengineered raccoons and women
for
who've been
yourself.
bred as weapons. Well, no, I'm just saying because what I'm saying is what we
Yeah.
would be as us, right?
Yeah,
Like
just
the
bumbling
Avengers
around.
is the idealized, like, this is the human ones where they have those conversations where, like, I'm sorry, I wasn't listening. Like, that doesn't happen in the Avengers.
Yeah. And I think you're right. In terms of the culmination of superheroes that live on Earth and do super things in the Avengers, and being a Joss Whedon movie and having all the Joss Whedon characterizations. You're right. Avengers is a movie I'll rewatch 100 times in my lifetime. But I think Guardians falls into this category of Jenny Josephson's expectations were magnificently exceeded, which is where the Star Trek reboot of 2009 falls. And so I have a special place in my heart for exceeded expectations, especially in movies these days, because they suck.
Movies don't suck. In fact, I think movies are better than they've ever been. You go back and look at some of those releases, like the 80s.
All right, I'll agree with you. When they get it right, they're better than they have ever been. I think the level of muddling.
I think there are fewer movies that get it wrong.
Yes. I think that this is just evolving into generalities, but
yeah, this is a nerd fight, is what it is.
Yeah, I think that when the right people are involved with the right studio and the right actors, things turn out better than they ever have, because the way that storytelling has evolved.
Well, now see, you're politicizing. You're coming at it with foreknowledge. I'm talking about
all
just
I'm saying is that
the
Joss
movie,
Whedon
not
should
knowing
be
anything
doing
about anybody else, just the movies.
every movie.
All right.
Every movie. All the movies.
All the movies, Joss, please. Well, JJ, I like JJ too. I know not everybody does, but
we had that conversation already. I too love JJ, while being a little annoyed that his attention drifted. Yeah.
All right. I am out of the post.
I'm going into the post.
We are published.
Good.
And that is it.
Yeah. Let me state again for the record that I very much enjoyed Ken Denmead.
Oh, good. Yeah. Ken's great.
Yeah.
I love Ken. All right. We'll see you later, folks.
Bye.